Okay, okay. So should I
Good.
give my name? My name is Regina Lovely, and I'm originally from Berlin, Germany. I was born on the outskirts of Berlin, and then we had to flee from the little outskirts to Berlin because the Russians were coming and they burnt our house down and so on and so on. Now, um, I was very lucky because my mother was an opera singer, and so she had special privileges to travel because she had to entertain the troops. And so in a way, my childhood was a lot nicer than a lot of the children's. But nevertheless, we still suffered from hunger and we hear the bombs. Now, I was born on May 24th in 1945, which officially marks already that the war was ended, but in reality, it was not ended, because I even remember going down the basement where the shelters were, and we would hear the sirens and then the shooting, and then the light would come back on, and then we could go back upstairs and see what's left of our apartment. Now, I lived in East Berlin. I was not in West Berlin. I was in East Berlin, and things were pretty tough. We had nothing to eat. A lot of times, my mom told me that I was raised on potato water because she didn't have any milk. So potato were very starchy. That kept me alive, and I love starches to this day. But anyway, as you can see, I survived. I was very honorary to survive. And I had two older brothers. My father was in Siberia in prison camp. And I didn't actually get to meet my father until 1950. That's when he was released, you know. And he was a total mess health-wise, because when the Russians got word that they had to release the soldiers, they fed them a lot of bread and water, anything that would blow them up. So I remember on the train station when we picked up my dad, all of the prisoners, they all looked bloated up, you know, like they were, and then for the rest of his life, my dad had to eat oatmeal. That's what kept him alive, oatmeal. So whatever they did, they pretty much ruined his health, you know. Anyway, back to me, my brothers. We were very street smart, and my brothers were older than I am, and so we learned to steal food very a lot. And they would have those produce baskets out in the front of the store, and we would steal food, stick it in our mouths, and run like crazy. Well, my brothers had this wonderful idea that it would be better, instead of together, that we would steal the food and then run separate ways, because they can't catch us all. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I forgot that I was the youngest and I couldn't run as fast as they can. So the store owners would catch me quite a bit, and I would always get my bottom spanked by them. So in those days, you were allowed to do that, I guess, you know. Anyway, there was a rumor going around that on the west side of Berlin, there were airplanes coming, and they were throwing candy out of the airplane. And of course, we thought that's just a rumor, but it was true. And depending on how the wind was blowing, occasionally one of these little parachutes would come down from the sky. And so I called it candy from heaven. And I got a little chewing gum in there, and my brothers, I don't know what all was in there, but I remember they gave me a chewing gum from that little parachute. And I have to tell you, I chewed that chewing gum for 2 months, not at nighttime, just in daytime. And then one day it just dissolved in my mouth. It just went away, and I said, oh no. But this candy from heaven, I thought, wow, I need to go to America, because if I live in America, I will have chewing gum and I will have food, because they must have a lot, because they can give it away. They can just throw it out of an airplane. So my dream at age 3 was to move to America because of you, Gail. And so, and that so embarked and was in 4th grade. And you know, we learn English very quickly, and languages in Germany very quickly. Anyway, in English, I had a straight A. In geography, I almost failed. But I knew all the states, all the presidents, all the major cities, but I had no idea what was going on in Germany. I just could have cared less. Now, my mom and my dad were very upset that I was so focused on wanting to move to America. And originally, my goal was that I will go to New York and work at the World Trade Center and, you know, interpret it or do something like that. And that's what my studies actually went to. However, I had a chance to become a exchange student. And I was with a family in Westchester, Pennsylvania. This is when I was a young teenager. And we went to New York City, and I was so shocked when I saw the city. The people seemed to be very rude, and it was dirty. And I never seen a city being this dirty like New York City was, because I'm from Berlin, and you know, we sweep the streets all the time. It's very clean there. So I said, I don't think I want to move to New York. I need to change my plans. Well, when the wall went up in 1961, I just happened to be on the west side in West Berlin visiting some friends of mine. And my brothers also went. My mother was on tour in Switzerland, and my dad was home. And so we asked my dad, can we go see our friends? And he said, yeah, good riddance, because now he had peace and quiet, you know? And so anyway, we were sitting at the breakfast table on August 13th. And we listened to the radio, and they say that they built a wall, that there are obstacles, there's barbed wire everywhere. We could not believe it. So after breakfast, we took off and we went to where the wall's supposed to be. Well, they had like 2 bricks full, like maybe like this high, maybe 12 inches high at the most. But they had huge rolls of barbed wires. And when a whole bunch of the West Berliners now would come close to it, the East Phobos, they would take a fire engine hose and start spraying us. And I literally got the impact on my chest, and I thought my chest was crushed, and I flew all the way back from the impact of that water. I will never forget that. It was very, very, very painful. Anyway, the truth was, yes, they did build a wall, like we all know. This was in 63, but I want to go back to 1948, where I was 3 years old and I got this candy. And I absolutely, like I said,
Regina, sorry, what year was it at the wall? 66?
The wall went up in 61.
So that was August 13th, 61?
August 13, 1961. That's okay. When the wall went up, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, sorry to.
And so the thing is, we were privileged because I could travel from east to west all the time because of my mother. Because we had like this international German pass where you could go, or different countries in Europe. So we didn't have it as bad as some other people, you know, that couldn't even get out anywhere. But I also remember my father listening to the radio, and he had his ear right on the radio so that nobody could hear it, like my neighbors couldn't hear it, because we were all afraid that we're going to get reported. and then we get arrested and all of this good stuff. And I remember being in first grade and learning all about Lenin and Khrushchev and how they're very good uncles to us, and all this propaganda, and started already in first grade. It was just amazing, Anyway, so when the wall came up, I knew that if I go back home, I will never be able to fulfill my dream to go to America. And so I decided, or asked the family that I was staying with, can I stay with you until my mother gets back from her tour in Switzerland? And they said, yes, no problem. And my brothers, unbeknownst to me, they also decided to not go to East Berlin to be with my father. So long story short, my father was the only one who never made it out of East Berlin. He lived all these years with the wall in Berlin, knowing that his family was safe on the West Side. And unfortunately, he passed away in '89, a week before the wall came down. So he never did saw the day that the wall went down. My son was there, and my son and him were very, very close. And I remember when they first met, my son didn't speak any German. My father doesn't speak any English. He's fluent in Russian, or was fluent in Russian. And yet, this is the first time I witnessed the language of the heart. My son was speaking English. My father was speaking German. They understood each other perfectly. Because not by language, but it had to be the language of the heart. And they formed a bond that was never broken, never ever broken. And my son, of course, over the years learned German. Do you have a question, Denise?
Yes, I just wondered, so you got to see your father. How did you get to see him if he was behind the wall?
When I became an American citizen, I wanted so much for my father to meet his grandson. And so when we flew to Berlin, my oldest brother, he had a passport from everywhere. He had one from Africa, he had one from, I don't know if it was India or whatever. Anyway, he used his African passport to go over, but he had to cross over a different crossing than me, because I was an American citizen and with my little son. And I remember giving him a Winnie the Pooh, so he looks really American, Anyway, we went over on Checkpoint Charlie. We had to cross over Checkpoint Charlie. And then we walked about a block or two, and then my brother picked us up and we took his car and we went to visit my grandfather. And my grandfather opened the door and he didn't see us. He just saw this little boy. And my boy says, "Hello, Opa." And my father, what? And then he looked and then he saw us, and then, he loved him and he took him. And, it was just so heartwarming. It was absolutely heartwarming. But that was the last time I saw my father. And that was in 1973. That was the last time I saw him. And because before I was allowed to marry my husband, who was German American, he was first generation American, I had to sign the paper from the military that I would break up all contact with my father because of him being in East Germany, and they were afraid of espionage and, all of this stuff. It was just bad times. And, but I found a way around. I would write a letter to my girlfriend in West Berlin, and then she would put it in a different envelope and send it to my father in East Berlin. And so they never found out. So we learned all kinds of tricks, to kind of survive. Anyway, so when I came to America, I would tell people my story because they think that's pretty interesting. And I kept asking, who is the man who started the parachutes? And well, most people didn't know. And so for many years, I kept asking, telling my story, and kept asking if anybody knows this person. I mean, it's like a needle in a haystack, right? And anyway, so once I joined the church, again, I tell my story, and all of a sudden we had a high priest come to one of our ward meetings, and he was telling about the candy bomber. And my Relief Society president, she looks at me and I says, yep, that's the one I'm looking for. You know? And anyway, so after his talk, after sacrament, I went to him. I said, do you know the candy bomber? And he says, I personally don't, but I know somebody who does, and I think they have his email. And I said, oh, please let me have it, let me have it. So eventually, a couple of weeks later, I got your email, and I emailed you, and we started a wonderful correspondence. And there for a while, I didn't hear anything from you, and I said, oh, he's probably very busy, and there's probably thousands of people trying to find you, you know, but I didn't know your name, I didn't know anything. All I knew is that you sent those parachutes down, and I wanted to meet you because you have changed my whole life. I left all of my family in Germany, and I came over here, and I wanted to meet you, and it was many, many years, almost 30 some odd years that I kept looking for you, not knowing who you are, only what you did. And finally, I got a reply on my email, and you apologized to me that it took so long to answer because when you read my story, your eyes would water up and you had to wait and then start all over again. So anyway, I thank you for this. So somehow you must have told somebody that you had contacted me. Oh, I remember you asked me if I had a handkerchief. And I did not ever see a handkerchief because I did not catch the actual parachute. Contacted me. I was just up so happy. That was one of the happiest days of my life. And then about a month or so later, I get a phone call from this Blair Troy, or is it Troy Blair? No, it's Blair Troy, right? Blair Troy, yeah. And he said, do you want to go to Germany? I said, sure, but I can't because I'm raising my grandchildren. And I lived in Oregon at the time. And then he said, well, we pay for it. I said, well, then I'm going, you know? And he says, because I am going to meet you. And of course I wanted to meet you. I mean, we corresponded online, but I had never met you. So, and he told me, don't tell Gail because that's going to be his surprise. I said, okay. So then you emailed me and you said, Reggie, I am going to Berlin for a couple of weeks and I'll write to you when I come back. And I was in my mind, I said, ha ha, he doesn't know that I'm coming. On a Sunday, I remember, I went to Sacrament, you went to Sacrament in a different church. And we met, of course, there was lots of people around, lots of confusion and everything. And they filmed everything. And so that's when we actually met. And that's when I got to realize that, yes, you've been my hero all my life, but you are more than I could have ever imagined. You have been way up above the pedestal because of all your kindness, your goodness, and it just comes out of you. And I had never met a man or any human being so loving, so kind, so compassionate, and so giving. And you know, the fun memory that I have of you is when we had a meeting at the church in Zehlendorf. There was a Boy Scout meeting. And you were getting a little bit tired from the day activities, and you said, I'm going to take a nap, I might not make it. Well, anyway, you came anyway. You're such a trooper, you know, and you came. And so I started clapping, then everybody started clapping after you entered the room. But what you did, they were playing some rock and roll music, and you were dancing with those Boy Scouts. And I said, this man is incredible. You just blew me away. Your energy level and you're loving to, no matter what the age are, boy, girl, it doesn't matter. You just love everybody you see. So, and like I said, you've been my hero, my biggest achievement in this country was that I found you. Out of millions of Americans, I found you. Thanks to the church too. But I still think it was God's intention that you and I should meet, because like I said, you turned my whole life around. In this country, my parents have passed away, but my siblings are over there. I go over once in a while. They come over once in a while, or did. Now with the coronavirus, we don't know what's going to happen now. But I am forever so grateful to you. And I love you to pieces. I love your kindness. And like I told you last time I saw you, my goal always has been, once I joined the church, my goal was that I want to be like Jesus. We're supposed to be Jesus. And I tell my children, we are the hands for God. We need to do kindness. We need to do service here, right? But when I met you, I realized this is the most incredible man I ever met in my whole life. Now I know I can never become like Jesus, but my goal now is to become kind and loving like you are. Whoops, I lost you. Are you still there?
We're still
Hello?
here.
Uh-oh.
We're still here.
We can hear you.
I lost the picture. Can you see me?
We can see
Yes,
you good.
we see you.
Okay, you can see me. I can no longer see you.
I'll be darned.
But that's okay.
Yeah, good.
That's all right. So let me ask something. I'm sorry, say that one more time.
We can see you and hear you just perfectly.
Hello?
We see you and hear you.
Okay, so then may I ask? Oh, good. Okay, because I can no longer see you. And let's see, maybe if I click on here, no, because it says Zoom. Oh, I wish I was more gifted in this tectonic stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm of old age. I used to go shopping and we used to have the clerk would add up everything with pencil and give us the sound, Anyway, what I wanted to, do you have any questions in specific that you would like me to answer?
Well, who did you marry? Did you marry a serviceman?
I married a service. See, there was a blessing in the Berlin Wall, because when the wall went up, the U.S. Army, they sent more troops over into Berlin. And as it happened, my husband was one of them. So if it wouldn't have been for the wall, I probably would have never met him. And then the other thing is, what happened, worked out nice, was that I ended up working for the military teaching German. Wow. Instead of going to New York, which I absolutely do not like. And so, yeah, I did what I could, and I taught plenty of people German, and one time I had a class of a whole unit. I think there was like 72 students, and then little old me, and none of them wanted to be in their class. And I spent the first couple of days just trying to convince them that this class is going to be fun, and I'm preventing you from getting your face slapped when you get over there, because they knew all the bad stuff, and I had to teach them how to take a bus, and so they don't get stuck in the barracks, and kind of go into the outside world, and not be afraid of, because it's a different country. Anyway, I wish I could see you, but I don't know what I did. Let me push this button here. Nope, that doesn't do it either. No, but you still can see me?
Yes, look on the bottom left where it says video. On the bottom left of your screen, it says stop video or mute. Do you see a button that has a video?
No.
Yeah,
on the bottom.
It says mute and it says stop video.
It says search for anything, connect with us, connect us. connect with us? No.
No.
How I yeah,
If
I'm
you're,
sorry.
click your mouse on the screen and see if there's a button on the bottom right that says mute and stop video.
Plans my camera can join. How to join me? Get started with Zoom? Maybe this way? Nope. No, that's not it either. That's not it. I don't know. I just have the screen says scheduling made easy. That's
Okay,
all I
well,
see. And then I see Microsoft. Yeah, I'm sorry.
we can still see you just fine. So let's keep going and
I still can talk. You've seen enough of me anyway.
well,
Yeah.
we can see you. So just
Yeah.
when did you go
So
to the
anyway,
United States?
so get back to my husband. My husband was German American. Okay, sorry. Tell me when you're ready.
Ready? Ready?
Okay, so my husband, did you say ready?
Ready.
Ready. Okay, so my husband came from America in Louisiana. His family was from Louisiana, but his dad was German, and I imagine that I don't know how they actually met for sure. I don't know this, but we were married for quite a long time, and unfortunately, my husband, we had just moved to the United States, to Kentucky, Fort Knox, Kentucky, and he got orders to have to go to Vietnam. And so he was in Vietnam for not quite a year, and then he got shot. And then he spent 2 years in Valley Forge Hospital. And but the last year of the 2 years, he could come home for 1 month, and he can come and then have to go back to the hospital. And so this went on for a while before he was finally released. And then he was allowed to stay in the military, but he basically lost the function, or the strength, I should say, of his right arm, because they shot his radial nerve, and it took a long time to heal. And he was in a cast from the waist up to the neck, and then his arm was always sticking out with a coat hanger. He was such a mess. But anyway, the war has done a lot of damage to him mentally, and it was a very, very sad story. But anyway, he passed away now, and but that's all I have to say. Him and I remarried again, and that did not work out very good at all. I was very foolish, thinking that I had to be married, and because I wanted it for my children, and but it was the wrong choice. So I've been single now and alone for 30 some odd years, 36 years actually, 36 years now. And at this point in my life, I'm too ornery to adapt to anybody. And I become very strong. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't be as strong as I am, because, I don't know, it's just, but it's a survival instinct. I was born with the survival instinct, Oh, I want to tell you a little story. When we were little, of course, you all seen pictures of Berlin, and was totally bombed. And my brothers and I, when we were little, we used to go into the ruins and look for treasures for my mom. And by treasures, I mean, sometimes we saw a what you call a tile that wasn't broken yet. So we would bring this tile to her, and she could use this as a hot plate, to put a pot on and stuff like that. So we found all kinds of goodies, and we saw also dead people still basically sitting on the dining room table, and it was just terrible. But the one thing that I remember the most is the smell of dead people. That is a smell that is so implanted in my brain that I don't think I will ever forget that, But other than that, people say, oh, it's horrible what you went through. And I said, but I didn't know. We did not know this is the world that I was born into. I had nothing to compare it with. And so it wasn't as hard as people thought, but the only hard thing was the hunger. And I always say hunger pains is the worst because your intestines feel like they all want to turn inside out. It was just horrible. And I remember some very nice soldiers, American soldiers, that would see us kids, and we usually were in a group of 3 or 4, and they were smoking. And so they would see us and they would drop their cigarettes and we would pick it up and we would hurry up and smoke it and, we'd pass it around, so to say. And I remember at first getting really, really sick from it, but then I got used to it. And it took the hunger pains away, And I remember I was a smoker for almost 20 some odd years. And I remember trying hypnosis and all of this, and he said, "This is difficult with me because I have a different memory because of the hunger pains, and while I was going to church, I don't know how many blessings, but I'm so grateful that nobody gave up on me. They said, you can do it. And I kept telling myself, I'm tough, I can do this, I'm tough. But I had lots of setbacks, and then finally I did it, and I had another blessing, and I finally did it. I could give up the coffee, and I was never much of a drinker or anything like that, so that didn't bother me. But the cigarettes, they were my hang on, there we go. It's just one of those spam phone calls again. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, is there anything else you would like to know about me?
How did you join the church?
Well, there were 2 missionaries coming to my door, and I was in a situation. I was a single parent at the time, and I was in the situation where I just not wanted to listen to anything. And because when we got divorced, my husband and I, we were Catholic, and so the Catholic Church pretty much kicked me out. Hang on just a second. I thought that I had this blocked here. There we go. Now it's over. I don't want them to hear my conversation. Anyway, and so they came in, and I think I kind of let them in because I was just bored, and I saw the 2 young men, and so they came in. My goodness, hang on just a second here. I need to undo this here. There. So anyway, and so I listened to the missionaries, and the funniest thing, well, it wasn't funny, but it was awakening to me, is that when I went to the first, second, or third, my goodness, these people don't want to give up. Hang on here. Okay, anyway, so they all of us, and they told me, of course, to read the Book of Mormon or parts of it. And when I was reading something, all of a sudden, my brain told me, you already know this. And all of a sudden, it's like, I already know all of this. And I thought, that is so weird. So then I took it more serious, and I started to read, and I was just amazed. And then I remembered lots of memories as when I was a child. I remember one time when I got confirmed in the Catholic Church as a teenager, on my way of walking home, and my parents were not very religious, so I had to do this on my own. because I always had a close contact with Heavenly Father. And I don't know how I believed in Heavenly Father. I don't know how I, even got my religion, but I liked going to church because it was very peaceful and they were singing songs and all of this. But anyway, I remember walking home from being confirmed and I felt like an angel or Heavenly Father or Jesus, somebody put their arms around me and made me feel like I was very, very special. And, and I never ever thought about this anymore, but I always had a very strong belief in Heavenly Father. I just didn't know much about him because my mother always told me, he's going to get you. You're going to burn in hell or you have the devil in you. And then I acted accordingly. I had to live up to her reputation. My reputation. And I became quite ornery. And of course, I had two older brothers. They helped me be ornery. Anyway, but I always felt I had a special connection with my Heavenly Father. And now I also truly believe that even though I say, yeah, I did all this and I did all this, but in reality, I really feel I was guided by God's hand. There is a reason why I needed to be here. I don't know if it has anything to do with me or if it has to do with my children or grandchildren or future generation. All I know is that I needed to be the root here, and I've done some genealogy work, and I grew up in a family that were not very close. We were not family orientated at all. I never really met my aunts or uncles or cousins or anything like this. I remember meeting one of my grandmothers, and she was very, very stern. And she was old Hungarian royalty. And the other grandmother, my dad's grandma, I really loved her, but she passed away when I was just a little girl. But I still remember seeing her in the casket and thinking to myself, I need to remember this moment because I'm not going to see her again. So you have different childhood memories that pop up occasionally when certain things happen and you say, yep, I knew this and I need to be here. And I always felt Heavenly Father loved me, even though I know darn well sometimes I do not deserve it, but I'm always trying. And I realized that Heavenly Father made me stubborn on purpose because I never give up. And so that's all I have to say on that. So anyway, it took me about 1.5 years before I got baptized. I wanted to be ready and I had to quit smoking. I had to quit drinking. And of course I quit smoking, and it seems like no sooner was I baptized and I fell back and I felt so guilty. And then I got a couple of years blessing so I could do it. And I wanted to go to the temple and I wanted to do everything right. And the smoking was the only thing that ever held me back. And I said, okay, one day I said, enough is enough. You can do this. You don't need this. And you're stronger than that stupid little cigarette. And so that's how I quit.
Wow, that's quite a great story. And I know you have a lot more details. Have you ever written a book?
I have not written a book. I meant to, but I just, I'm not talented. And the thing too is that my mom, when I was a little kid, I used to get A's all the time of the stories that I would tell. And my mom told me, well, that's because you're such a good liar. And so I didn't want to write anymore. And in dictations, I would get horrible grades because my spelling wasn't right. And she says, well, yeah, because that requires some brain, and so I always felt, no, I shouldn't write anything because people might think I'm a liar. And it's amazing the influence that your parents can have when you're little, and then when you grow up, you still can't quite let go. For instance, now that I'm getting older, I'm not that active anymore. And in the back of my mind, like you see, and so these things bother me that I can't get
over certain things that I was taught. And and the Americans here, my friends here, they always would say, "Oh, you are so German," and I said, "Really?" Because I go to Germany and my family says, "Oh, you're so American." So what am I? you know I'm a little bit of everything, I guess. And I raised my children the German way. They have good manners. They make eye contact. And my granddaughter, the one that I'm raising right now, she has autism, looking people in the eye, or focusing on anything. And I would always tell her, look me in the eye when you talk to me, look me in the eye. And she finally got it. And then I had to tell her, our hands, yes, we need to do the things that we need to do, but we also need help other people with those hands. And so this is our goal every day, to do something good for somebody. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't never cost money, just some service. And we just walk around with our eyes open and our hands ready to help. So that's my motive. That is the way I raise my children. They're all very kind and loving. I have to say that I'm very proud of them. And we don't have bickering in my family here than my family in Germany did all the time. I mean, and my brothers and I have a younger sister, we're very, very close. Even though we are far apart, we're very close in heart. All of that is important. And I never had a sense of family before I joined the church and I got into genealogy. And in May, the end of May, when I came down with the coronavirus and I ended up in the hospital, and I remember feeling so bad, and I'm saying, please, Heavenly Father, just take me home. It'll be okay. Just take me home. Well, he didn't listen to my prayer. So that tells me I'm not done. He still has things for me to do here. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, that's wonderful.
Now I'm out of words.
Before we stop recording, I want you to say how many children you have.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Before we stop recording, just say how many children and grandchildren you have.
Oh, you're breaking up. Yeah.
How many children and grandchildren?
I have 3 children. My oldest one is adopted because a doctor told me I'll never have children. And I told him, you don't tell a German what they can and cannot do. So anyway, honorary as I am, my husband and I, we can, we adopted this wonderful little boy. He is just amazing. And I am so close in soul and spirit with him. It is just, I'm closer to my son emotionally, my adopted son, than I am my children. And she was how do you say, I had to take all kinds of pills and all kinds of experiments and stuff like that. Anyway, she is my little experience, my very expensive experience. And she was only 2 pounds and 3 ounces when she was born. But when I saw her immediately, I said, she's strong, even though she was this tiny little thing. And of course she made it. And she made me a grandmother. She's been married for 20 years now. And my oldest granddaughter is 19. My middle granddaughter, the one that I'm still raising, is 18. And the little one is going to be 17 in January. And unfortunately, because my daughter had these children so quickly and also Syrian, she went totally off. She couldn't deal with anything. She couldn't cope. She couldn't do anything. Her husband, who was in the war in I don't know. Anyway, a couple of them. He has PSDT or whatever it's called, and he has a hard time taking care of himself. But they get along wonderful. But for the first 12 years, I raised all 3 babies, and I remember buying a basket full of just diapers, in different sizes. But so it wasn't easy. But I said, these are my grandchildren. There's no way that I would have somebody else raise them. So I took care of them. And then, of course, it took pretty much 12 years. And then my daughter and her husband said they want the oldest one. So they got the oldest one. And then they wanted, 2 years later, they wanted the youngest one. And they don't really have the middle one because she is, well, she's doing great now. I mean, she's going to the Dixie University now. And but you can tell she has autism, but she's also a hard worker, very self-disciplined, and I love all those wonderful traits of hers. She just talks too much sometimes. I have to shut her off sometimes. I would go upset and I say, will you shut up? And she says, please don't say that. I said, well, what do you want me to tell you so that you listen to me? And she says, well, why don't you just say shut down? I said, okay, that sounds good. So from now on, when I say please shut down, that means you have to stop talking, okay? So anyway, and then of course the three, and then I have a little one. Well, my little one now is 36 years old, and he's my baby, and he lives with me now. And I brought him a year after we moved to Utah. He still had to stay up in Oregon because of his job. And when his job was done, then I brought him a year later. I brought him back down here, and he's staying with me. And so I have a little bit company and some muscle in the house. Of course, I think my granddaughter is getting just as strong now. And so I am alone, but not alone. You know what I mean by that? Sometimes I lack adult companionship because there's a different relationship between your son and your granddaughter than you would have with like my church family, and I don't talk very much on the phone anymore because I'm hard of hearing now, and I'm trying to get a hearing aid or two, and when that is, maybe I will make more phone calls. But now with the virus, we can't really see each other, and so we either texting or things like that. So I'm trying to keep contact as much as possible with everybody. But sometimes I get lonely, which is natural. But I remember being married and feeling very lonely at times. So I have a patriarchal blessing, and my blessing says that I will have a husband. Well, it didn't say in this world, so maybe there's Mr. Wonderful is waiting up in heaven for me. Who knows? Anyway, that's totally off the subject. So, any other questions?
No, I think we're finished. So I'm going to say thank you very much. And we enjoyed hearing you and hope to hear some more from your story another time.
Okay, Denise, just real quickly, I mentioned it to Gail a couple, maybe last year or so. Anyway, I have been doing some talks about the candy bomber, about basically the Cold War years and things like that. And I've done quite a few in Oregon, and the word of mouth was great and stuff like this. So here nobody knows me, and I really would like to do the same thing here. But then I thought maybe if I can get like a letter saying that I'm approved to talk about the candy bomber, that you endorse that or stuff like that. And basically it's the church. Sometimes the places I did was old people's home, and I usually showed like a little clip from the candy bomber years and the Meet the Mormon movie. And I have a question for Gail. Do you know that the Meet of Mormon, your segment, the candy bomber segment, I watched it in Idaho at the visitor center, and it was 29 minutes long. And I called Troy and said, I want that version, because in the regular movie, you only see me like for a second and then you blink your eye and I'm gone.